Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to share with you 10 things that I wish I knew before I started curating my ears, before I started getting multiple ear piercings as an adult. Today we're talking about the curated ear piercing trend. I know this video may not be like a high performer, but I thought that it would be really valuable and useful if you or someone you know is thinking about getting multiple ear piercings, or if you've seen this trend and you've thought about, you know, going ahead and branching into it. If you've been on my channel for a while, maybe say 2 years ago, you would have known that I didn't have any other piercings other than my lobes. I hadn't gotten an ear piercing since my childhood. And here we are now in 2022, I have 6 piercings on each ear. So I'm gonna get started in today's video. Before I do get started though, I think this kind of goes without saying, disclaimer, I am not an expert, okay? I'm not a piercer and I'm not going to know the exact terminology, even the exact names of the piercings I have. So cartilage and lobe are two very different stories. Like I said, I haven't had piercings since I was a child, and getting your lobes done is a completely different ball game. It's a lot easier. I think personally it's a lot less risk and it's a lot less painful. So cartilage is definitely, can be a little bit more spicier, okay? I mean, you can just tell just by feeling cartilage in your lobes, like that's some thick cartilage to pierce through. Just keep that in mind. The first thing that I recommend to you is to find a piercer that you feel comfortable with, that you like, and work with them and exclusively work with them. So I love my piercer. I trust her with my ears, obviously. It took me not a long time to find her, but she actually wasn't the first piercer that I went to go see. She worked at the place that I went originally, and I first went with a man that was highly recommended by somebody, and you know, he was good, but when I came back a few months later with a few issues, she was the only one working there, and she was so much more knowledgeable because I had talked to him about the same particular issues, and he was just kind of like, yeah man, like yeah, I mean yeah, like he was just like really blasé about it. Whereas when I went back, I saw her and she was so much more knowledgeable. She actually looked at me and saw me and actually cared what I was saying, and she offered her opinions and her advice, and she just really had this nurturing element that I really appreciated, and she managed to help me with the issues that I was having. And even though, interestingly, she didn't even have as much experience as the other piercer that I saw, I just trusted her. I just felt inside that I trusted her because she had a good vibe. Find a piercer that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, and your experience will be a lot better. So my second piece of advice is to start one at a time. Now, I've known of people who have just, and it depends, I guess, what your personality type is, but I've known of people who just go in and just get them all at once. And to me, that seems like a fainting episode waiting to happen. Like, the pain for me would just be too much. So my recommendation is to just start with one, and my recommendation is to just start somewhere. If you just start somewhere, and then you can kind of curate the rest of your ear around that piercing that you started with, if that makes sense. But you know, I looked on Pinterest, I looked on Instagram, I looked for months and months. I had like a whole mood board on Pinterest for ear curation, and I still just didn't know where to start. But as soon as I started, it gave me that clarity, and I could see then where next that I wanted to go. I also think that, to me, a telltale sign of a good piercer is someone that actually can recommend what's going to look good on you. You know, these people are experts, this is what they do for a living, and if they're a really good piercer, like I love mine, she's amazing. She actually helped me curate mine. She looked at my ears, and everybody has different ear shapes. Everybody has certain piercings that are going to look better on them depending on the shape of their ears. And it's kind of a good way to work with them. And they can give their recommendations on what will look good on your ears, or even what will be the best ones to start off with, what will be the least painful. I also say start one at a time, because if you're a side sleeper, like I am, getting 2 done at the same time, or you know, before one is completely healed, you have no choice but to sleep on your back or uncomfortably sleep on your side. So I like to start one at a time and just kind of take your time with it and go slow with the process. I also think if someone who's struggling with the idea of whether or not you're going to like it or you can imagine it, for months and months before I got my first piercings, I was wearing ear cuffs all the time. I was wearing ear cuffs every damn day just to get a feel for the idea of what this would look like if I had it permanently. It's not really permanently, you can take it out and it, you know, closes over, but what it would look like if I had this in my ear 24/7. And that kind of grew me more accustomed and more comfortable to the idea. I also like the idea of, you know, just dotting a permanent marker on the placement that you think you want it and just kind of sitting with it for a little bit, taking a photo, referring back to the photo. If you're passing a mirror, just take a look at it, kind of just to start to get comfortable with the idea of that potentially being a piece of jewelry there. Number 3, following on from what I just said, I do think that working one at a time is really the best way to go. I recommend just sticking with one side at a time so you can still sleep on the other side if you're a side sleeper. So number 4, I think this kind of probably goes without saying, but take the healing and the aftercare instructions that are given to you seriously and actually follow those instructions. The amount of times that I would find myself on like Reddit threads or just threads in the ear piercing communities online when I was worried about mine, and people were like, oh hey, like I don't know what's wrong with my ears, something's wrong with them.
I haven't used the spray they gave me and I haven't done anything to them for months.
I'm like, yeah, well, that might have something to do with it. So really take the aftercare seriously. And for me personally, I don't know if it depends what your body and what your healing is like. I've actually found through personal experience, trial and error, but also the experience of my piercer. She was, when I was having trouble with that one up here that I had pierced by someone else, she recommended that I change it over to titanium jewelry because it just was feeling a bit funny. And as soon as I changed it over, it was so much better for the healing process. I tend to notice that if I get something pierced, I will put titanium in it first because it tends to heal faster. And I've tried other ones where I don't start with titanium and it just takes a bit longer. It still doesn't feel quite right for a little bit. So titanium I found is what works the best for me and my body and my healing. But again, that may be different for you. Number 5, we're going to talk about healing. Now this point may be a little bit longer because this is still an ongoing journey. I love that word, journey for me. The healing process can take months. Most time the piercers will give you a minimum amount of time before you can go ahead and change that piercing. But just because you can go ahead and change it, it doesn't even mean that it's fully healed. Like it can take months, if not up to a year to heal. And I think for quite some time with my first few piercings, I got a bit lucky. Not lucky even. I guess I just picked certain placements that were really easy to heal. And for instance, these two here, I have this one up here. This one actually feels like it's weirdly healing a lot better than this one is. I had this one done way before I had this one. I think I've had this one done for about 4 months. I just was so used to my piercings feeling great in like 2-3 months maximum. This one still doesn't quite feel right. And you may notice if you pay a lot of attention to my ears in my videos, which probably not, I've actually changed it over because I had a really thick kind of Maria Tash, really beautiful garland style. This one is still not completely healed. I was speaking to a friend who had a similar one and she said hers hadn't healed for like a year. She ended up taking it out because it was just annoying her. But I've had other people who told me it took a really long time to heal. So I don't even really know. I'm fingers crossed. I'm hoping that this heals fine, but I don't really know if it will. I'm hoping it does. And if it doesn't, worst case scenario, I just take it out. I think there's a reason this is taking a little bit longer to heal, and this is something that you may want to consider, is the damn mask wearing, okay? The amount of times that I accidentally yanked the piercing with the mask string, and I don't think that helped the healing process at all. So that's just something to be aware of. And I've spoken to my piercer about this and she said that she's seen a few people come in with same issues. The masks are not helping, okay? They're not helping. If you're healing your piercings, you have to be so careful. And sometimes you just forget. Especially if it's a new piercing, you don't remember it, you don't remember it's there. You just kind of yank away. Even sometimes I'd like run my hand through my hair, like ah! So you just have to be super, super careful. I've touched on sleeping, I've touched on the masks. This may be a little bit TMI, okay, but I'm coming to you as like a friend, okay? A sister, if you will. Sorry, mum, if you're listening to this, which I doubt you are, but if you are going to go ahead and get piercings, especially ones that aren't in the usual spot, or maybe they were a little bit thicker cartilage, please be aware. Okay, so if you have a partner, if you have a sexual partner or sexual partners, you know, whatever floats your boat, just be aware that much like sleeping on it and fiddling with it or mask, you know, touching it with your mask, yanking it with your mask, rough sex does not help the healing process. Chances are if you're forgetting it's there, your partner, especially if he's a man, can get a bit much sometimes, you know, like the touching of the ears and the hair and ruffling around in the sheets and like, all of that does not help the healing process, okay? So if you are going to have ear piercing and you have a partner, you need to be like, look, this is out of order. This isn't out of order. This is out of order. Try not to touch my ears. Please be careful with me because I'm a delicate flower and so is my ear. I think that's enough on that. Number 6, for the love of God, do not pick at it. I am a pimple picker. I'm a pimple toucher and a fiddler. And I'm well aware that by doing so, I'm actually prolonging the healing of my pimples. And I'm actually spreading, like, hello, I've got a bit of a situation happening here. 1 pimple's turned into 3 because I couldn't control myself. But if you are a pimple picker, chances are you may be an ear picker. Now, I'm not because I'm super paranoid. Just keep that in mind and consider, would you be able to control yourself from touching, fiddling, twisting your piercing? Because the less you touch it, the better it will heal. So if you can control yourself and you think that you have the willpower to not touch it, not pick at it. I mean, to be honest, guys, even sometimes now I catch myself and I'm like, oh, it hurts. Oh, I'm just gonna touch it more. Let me just touch it more. And that's not helping. If you knew how much bacteria was under your fingernails, do not pick. Number 7, it takes trial and error to find out what looks good where. This is still a process for me. I'm still not 100% happy with the pieces and the jewelry that I have everywhere. I'm not like sometimes I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I love it. Other days I'm like, maybe something else could go there. So it's gonna take trial and error and you just have to be patient with yourself. You have to be patient with the process and know that you may change your mind. You may get certain piercings, get certain jewelry even that you're like, oh, I thought this was gonna look good, but it doesn't look good. And that's just kind of a risk you take. Number 8, some may fall out. And there are some that may fall out or you may wanna change over, but you actually can't do it yourself. So this one here, I had this one, it actually fell out when it was healing. I had to drive all the way to my piercers to get her to put it back in because if I waited, it would close up and I didn't want that. But no, and this one you don't have to do, but this is something that I personally do and I strongly recommend. When it gets to the point where I'm able to change it over, I don't do it myself. I go to her and I get her to change it over herself. It also just makes me feel better because it gives her a chance to have a look at it and see how it's healing, see how it looks. And she gives me the okay whether or not she would change it over or not. Again, this one, I didn't go to her with it. And funnily enough, this is the only one I'm having issues with. This one, I just did it myself because I was way too cocky and way too excited. If I went to her to change that, she might have looked at it and said, actually, Caitlin, I might not, you know, how does it feel? Maybe not, maybe just wait a little bit longer. And that's the only one that I didn't do this with. Every other one of these piercings, I will go to her and get her to change it over for me. So she gets to do it and she gets to have a look at how it looks and she can tell me what she thinks and give me the all clear and the all good. So that's something that I just do just for peace of mind. Number 10, my last tip. If you want more piercings, go ahead and get more piercings. I have had people, weirdly, really passionate people comment on my YouTube videos. I block and delete, and then they find me on Instagram and will send me the exact same thing in my DMs because they're just weirdly super passionate about my ears. Like I've literally never seen anything quite like it. It's quite bizarre. Basically telling me that,
you know, this trend is so dead.
It's so over. Oh, it's so out of date.
Oh, Caitlin, you look so tacky with all your ear piercings. It's just not a good look.
Like I've just had the most weirdest, most passionate people telling me about my ears, and it's just, I find it really weird. Like I've never thought that anyone would be so passionate about my ears, but they are. And to that I just want to say, if this is something you want, go ahead and do it, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Funnily enough, before I even got these, the only thing I was worried about was, oh, like, what is it going to look like when I'm like 60, you know, if I make it to 60 or 70, like, what is it going to look like then? And I just realized that I was living for the future. I was living for a future that may or may not exist, and instead I want to live for the now, and this is what I want to do to my ears, and this is what I'm going to do to my ears. I didn't even consider, oh, well, what happens when the trend's out? Oh God, what's going to happen when the trend's gone? I'm going to look so out of fashion. Because I don't actually think this is a trend. Like, it may be a trend for the mainstream, but my piercer, she has so many piercings. She doesn't care whether or not it's cool or it's trendy or not. It's just her style. If this is your style, if you want multiple ear piercings, you go ahead and get multiple ear piercings. But if the thought is lingering for you that if you were to get them and then all of a sudden the curated ear trend was out of fashion, if you think that's going to bother you, then I like I say, don't do it. If you are worried that that's gonna be how you feel, then you're probably not doing it. It's probably not like truly part of your style. Maybe you're probably just more falling for a trend, and it probably doesn't really align with you if you're scared that one day you may look out of fashion. If this is something you love, you do it for you and enjoy. It's fun. Like, I love my ears, and I gotta say, guys, like, I feel really good. I feel good, and it's hard to explain, but like, even when I wake up in the mornings and, you know, my hair's all over the place, I don't have any makeup on, I look in the mirror and I love that I have these really beautiful jewels and these beautiful little interesting details in my ears that just make me feel good, and they just add a little something extra, and it's for me. I really hope that you found today's video useful or helpful if you're considering this. If you've ever thought about getting, I mean, maybe you've never even thought about getting this many, but have you thought about getting another ear piercing? Share with me your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm gonna have another one linked for you right here. If you haven't had enough of me just yet, feel free to join me over there. Thank you so much for being here in today's video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.